Welcome to Stop Now. I'm JK.
I'm Shiva, co-host.
Hi, Shiva. We are back with this week talk show, and we are going to miss Melissa and Nate, and we are the backup guys. And we have a special guest, returning guest, Heron Stone, and we had a wonderful talk with him, and it's quite fascinating. Heron, welcome back, and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for returning and accepting our request like to come back again, and you are such a pleasure, and we had so much to talk about, and I know like you are quite busy on the clubhouse thing these days, and I
Yeah.
didn't get to listen more on that. So can you mind like telling us I don't want to revisit that questions which we did, and I will continue with the last conversation we had. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like I stuck with the word fuck, so that is where like I ended up with our conversation when I revisited that video. So what do you have to think about that word? Because you are an expert and you focus on the tactical language things.
The word fuck,
Yes.
Yes.
I don't really think much about that word. um, yeah, it's not something I've given much thought to. I mean, there are a lot of words that people find offensive. That's just one of them. I don't know. Maybe if you asked me a specific question, I could answer it, but I just don't much think about words like that. Or, yeah.
To elaborate, right? I'm just not to make you uncomfortable, but then
No, I don't mind saying fuck. I can say fuck all day long. That's not a problem. I can even say fuck you. So I don't have a problem with the word. I just don't much care about it and haven't thought about it much.
yeah, in different cultures and different people use it in different contexts, right? So
Oh
in
yeah.
the same word, right? Uh, you say to yourself, right? I'm so fucked up, and you
Yeah.
even songs are written out of it, and people connote it to sexual meaning alone or
Oh yeah.
offensive, derogative. So many things comes
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah. And this is fucking fun being here. So yeah.
So is it right or wrong to use those kind of words?
Oh, it's neither right nor wrong. It's just a word.
So this is like inbuilt in our mission, right? Like the language mission you refer to, and so why is it like offensive to some people, right? Today we have a special show going on the LGBT community, right? So for example, that was a controversy for quite some period, and even still for some people,
Still is. Yeah.
they don't they don't want to refer them like, to those words like pimp or those things, right? Transgender or
Yeah.
less gay. Even now, like if you say you're
Yeah.
a faggot, it's an offensive thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that language plays a role in our society?
I've never really thought specifically about this issue. So I'm kind of at a loss for words. There are a lot of words, I mean, shit, fuck, piss, god damn it. There's all sorts of words that some people find offensive and other people don't find offensive. And I just, and the word fuck, I mean, I use that word all the time, but it's usually something good. It's like, that's fucking awesome, or something like that. So to me, I don't usually use it in a negative way. It's just a sort of emphatic term. It's not just awesome, it's fucking awesome. So, but yeah, I just, see, my interest in language is more in analysis and in how we use language in analytical situations. So the word fuck is just sort of irrelevant to me.
So in that context, right? So last time also, like Shiva, help me out if you can pitch in and ask some questions on that. different cultures, different languages, people who speak multi languages, they have problem in understanding a particular way of communications, right? Not just the accent, like the British or Americans or different style of speaking English, but the connotation and the meaning itself changes for them, right? If you use certain words. So how do you see that? Like, what is your take on? How do you elaborate our understanding of?
Well, again, my work primarily is in debugging English. I know every language is a unique universe into itself. You know, thinking in, you know, any language is unique. It's different than thinking in another language. But my work is really all around debugging English, you know, trying to make it a better tool for thinking. So these kinds of issues that you're talking about aren't something I'm really competent to talk about. I mean, I've studied several languages, a number of them. I can't speak any of them, but I've studied maybe 10 languages because I was interested in getting an idea about how they work, you know, but I can't speak anything else. So yeah, I just don't think I really have anything interesting to say about that question. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Like, I mean, so even for our talk shows, right? Our brand itself, we are trying to your question before, right? Stop now, right? The minute we say that, we just try to get the attention. Like, people are doing something wrong. You need to stop whatever you are going to say about it, right? So
Yeah.
stop, listen, and share. That is our logic in which, like, we are trying to approach some social issues to do some social good things, like stopping the racism, stopping people to have the conversations and dialogue, and don't discriminate people, uh, don't abuse the system. So many things, right? So that's where, like, we fall into the social good sector, and we are trying to do this social experiment. And in this, the language plays a major part.
Yeah.
For different people, it gives different meaning, right? When they say, like, why are you making it as a negative thing? Why don't you brand something positive?
Yeah.
And always we think about positive energy and enlightenment, spirituality. All those things are more fancy things, but in reality, it's always the human mind is attracted towards the negativity, right? So when you see the news and the other things that is going on around, always that can be sold as, like, more of a, in journalistic terms, I would say, like, uh, that which doesn't leads, right? So
Yeah.
something like that. So how do we come to a conclusion? The language is driving us to think the way we think.
Well, so the question is how is language driving us to think the way we think? Is that what the question is?
Yes.
Well, this gets down to one of the central issues of what I'm doing. My goal when I have students is to help them, what I say is to break the identification with the voice in the head. You know what I'm talking about the chatter, the voice that is always in there commenting on everything, right? You're
Yes.
familiar with that, okay? Most people are identified with that voice. They think that voice is me. You know, I said that. I think this. But actually, especially anyone who's meditated, they realize relatively quickly that you're not even in control of that voice. That voice does what it does, despite my intentions. you know, I can't even shut it. I can't even quiet it at first without some training. And so people tend to believe everything they hear the voice in their head say. And most people have a lot of negative, really counterproductive, toxic languaging going on, judgments about other people or about myself or whatever. And many people, you know, really suffer from this internal monologue. So, like I say, my job is to help people understand that the voice in their head is not something I is doing. It's something that's happening to I. It's just my language machine, and it operates according to the way it's been programmed since infancy, and by the media, and by all my friends, and my neighbors, and my parents, and especially my parents in the first 5-6 years. The way the parents talk gets inserted into my brain. And well, I don't know, I could talk for hours about this. Maybe you have a question. I mean, does that speak to your question?
Yeah, you said like we are not a mind or we are not a body.
I don't know what the word I refers to anymore. I have never found any adequate language that I'm satisfied with that it tells or says what I is. So for me, I'm quite content to say that I is the great mystery, the thing about which I can say nothing.
So you mean to say that, like, in the meditation world, right? They take you into deep meditation kind of thing. I am not the mind and I'm not the body. And then it's basically, who am I? The question is trying to find enlightenment kind of thing. And how does that helps in the real world for you to live your practical life?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. What do you mean by the real world?
I mean, for me, like the spiritual thing they talk about, right? Something of not of this world, right? The physical world, which we can see, feel, touch, those normal things we do.
That's material life. Are you saying like material life and spiritual life? That is the difference between material and spiritual life.
Well, for me, that distinction doesn't work. Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. That's one thing. Like if you talking about a language, you need material life. If you need a material life, you need a language. If you go for a spiritual, no need of a language. Your mind become empty. And why we need language?
Well, it doesn't make any difference whether we need it or not. We have it.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, maybe we need it, maybe we don't. I don't know, but it's there. Okay. So the job is to clean it up, at least for me.
So we developed the language, right? So we are stuck with it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we don't develop it. It is imposed upon us by the culture, by our parents primarily in the first, and then everything else. But it's not something we have a choice in or that we do. It is put into us. And, you know, unless you have a stroke, you know, or something that wipes it out, it's there for the rest of your life. You can learn to control it. You can reprogram it. There are a lot of things you can do with it. And you can even shut it down for, you know, for some minutes, you know, occasionally, if you know how to do that. But it's essentially something that's just there. Well, it's what I call the language machine. It's a part of my brain, and its job is to take all my sense data and fitted into my story. And I've got my story about who I am and what I'm doing and what the world is and who you are and what's going on. And all of that is built up in language.
Do we think before language?
Whoops.
He froze.
He
Okay.
did indeed.
So let's go with that thought process, right? So you said we are dumped with this language mission by the family, by the society, right? So
Yeah.
we just had a conversation with one other person. It's an interesting concept of identity archaeologist. Like he's trying to dig in deeper and find your identity in that. So
Yeah.
if you try to learn different language or try different culture, how does that like going to help us in overcoming this? Like anyway, like we are not going to shut down the brain activity, right? Because it's hardwired already. Once you have given an input, the data, and it knows, like basically we have feeded the program in that, and it starts running that. And you try to reprogram and redo it. It's all the matrix kind of thing, right? So how do we overcome those hurdles?
Well, I'm developing a curriculum basically to do just that. And it starts with, well, one of my podcasts is called The Five Stupidities of English. I don't know if, have you heard that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So once a person is aware of some of the problems that language imposes on us, they can begin to listen to other people and hear and identify these specific words or kinds of words that are problematic in other people. But then after they get good at hearing it in other people, they can start hearing it coming out of their own mouth. And once a person actually starts hearing things that they know are stupid coming out of their own mouth, that's when the game gets interesting. Because then you can begin, I mean, when you hear yourself saying these things and you know they're wrong, then that begins to draw a line or to separate me, or I better, from this language machine thing that's talking all the time, blah, 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 blah. And that's really the central issue, is to, like I say, to break identification with the voice in the head, to really realize that the voice in my head is not me. That's not who I am. That's just my language machine, and it's badly programmed. And once you're at that point, it's a new world. once you know that voice and anything it says is not who I is or what I is, well, that's a new game. It's a new world at that point. And of course, then the question becomes, if that voice isn't me, well, then who is I? Who am I? If that's not that voice, who am I? And of course, I don't know. I can't talk about what I is, because language just is inadequate to deal with it. It's the great unspoken mystery. And I'm quite content. It's only been in the last 10 years that I've been content or even happy about the mystery. For most of my life, it irritated me that I didn't know what the word I referred to. It made me nervous or anxious or angry even sometimes. And I wanted to know, who is this I? But now I'm quite content to say, I don't know. I don't have any language for that. It's the great mystery, and I'm okay with that now.
Interesting thing, like you brought that up, like on the get of the. So for me, like right when you say like I means like it's the opposite will say like you, right? They don't say like I. Everyone is, the I is the identity for me, right? When you say like I, it's the identity. What identity I want to choose, I want to carry, right? For example, if I want to identify as a gay person, or if I want to identify as a particular thing, that is my choice, right? So what is the problem in finding that I?
Well, all I can say is after 50 years of meditating about this, I don't have an answer.
So the point is like when they all say this, right? If you say like I don't know, there is a potential to know. I
Maybe,
get that, but
well,
then how long are you going to say that like I don't know for everything? That
yeah, I don't think language can do that. I think that's a misapplication of language. I don't think it's possible in language to capture I. I is too big, too mysterious to be captured in a sentence, in a puff of air that comes out of my mouth. Uh, it's just it's just a misunderstanding of language to think we can even talk about I. I don't think we can. I think I, like I say, well, this is just my point of view. I don't. I know that most people don't see this the way I do, but I do the way I do. I still have English running in my language machine, and I use the word I all the time. I just used it several times, and I'll use it many more times. But if I stop and ask myself, what is this I thing that I keep referring to? I don't know. I don't have any language for it. Maybe I know, but even if I know, I still can't talk about it. So maybe I know, yes, but it doesn't fit into the language machine. It cannot be talked about. At least that's my understanding of it at this point. Maybe I'll change my mind next week. I don't know.
So knowing that is important, right? And we will help you out in making you understand what is I. I'm just joking. Like working. Shiva, welcome back. You can jump in
Yeah.
and ask question anytime. So
Okay.
Heron, on the wisdom mission on your work, right?
Yeah.
Randomly select 16 words from the list below, and you have given a list, and asking us like not to study that. Don't study the list. Don't pick words you like or don't like.
Well, you
Don't
can
do
do that
anything.
if you want, but like I say, it's got to do it for me, so you don't have to sit there and click all those things. But if
Oh,
you want to, you can click words and see and try and make it, interesting. So that's okay too.
so what are the 16 words you would randomly select?
Oh, I don't. Again, those words are all meaningless. Well, they're not meaningless, but again, those words, well, they are meaningless until you give them a specific meaning. Freedom, dignity, happiness, honor, responsibility, trauma, intelligence. Those are not like words, like hard drive or eyeglasses or pencil or keyboard or keyboard. Those are things. Those are things you can put in a bucket and look at, put them on the table, examine them, take them apart. All sorts of things you can do. You can't do any of that stuff with intelligence or freedom or happiness or honor. Those are not things. They're relationships between things. And that's an entirely different order of reality. But unfortunately, in English, they're all grouped together as nouns. And that just leads to inevitable confusion and arguments and wars and murders and all sorts of things, because people get caught up, hypnotized literally by these words. They have a lot of emotional power to them, but zero information content. Did you do the wisdom machine number 2, where it puts substantive nouns in there?
No, I just did this one,
Oh,
and
well, let me send you some text here.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to randomly select the 16 words, and I was quite fascinated with the result it gave, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge and evolution. How did you come up with this? Like, is there like
Oh,
logic behind it?
there was something similar to this in a book that I read maybe 30 years ago, and but I I didn't really like the way they did it, so I rewrote, basically just redid it so that. Okay, so I see you've got it up there. Um, well, so read that. Or you
Yeah,
want?
there is no knowledge without liberation, and the time fast approaches when paradox will no longer be able to withstand the force of introspection. Until now, people have been content with mere authority, but now we must move behind justice to wisdom. For we must always remember that the fundamental force behind enlightenment is not existence, but ambiguity. That's quite interesting. And of course, we all know that the convergence of freedom and reality leads inevitably to greater love. The age of confusion has arrived. Which side are you on?
Okay, now hit that back button and do it again. Do it for me. Don't select. Just have it. It'll just randomly pick them. No, well, like I say, no, don't do it that way. Just click. See the button up there where it says do it. Yeah.
Oh, do it. Okay.
So it just randomly picks words. Okay. So now read this one.
There is no education without participation. The time fast approaches when evil will no longer be able to withstand the force of control. Until now, people have been content with mere vanity, but now we must move behind liberation to pride. Oh, now I got it. So you just replace the words alone with the existing sentences.
Yeah, and it sounds like some politician, or some philosopher. It sounds like maybe it might mean something. Click back again. Do it again. Read, okay, stupidity and happiness. Let's hear this one.
Okay. There is no tolerance without ignorance. The time fast approaches when tradition will no longer be able to withstand the force of universal. Okay, so the age of justice has arrived. So this is kind of the same sentence, and you just
It's
play
the
with the
same
words.
format. You just change the words around randomly, and it always sounds like a philosopher or a politician is talking. It sounds like maybe it means something, but it doesn't mean anything. It just sounds like it should mean something. Now, go up to the top there and retype the URL so it says number 2, TWM2. Yeah. Now you got a different set of words. These are substantive nouns. Click do it for me again. Now read this one.
Knees and dinosaurs. There are no elevators without socks. The time when shelves will no longer be able to withstand the force of cables. This is interesting. Okay. In mushrooms. So this points back to one of these kind of plays, like the visual effects and how our mind interprets all those things comes to my mind. Like even the words itself, right? If you misspell it or you write it like in the wrong order, still our brain can, when you see that, you can read it properly.
Well,
So
when you look at that second one you did, that doesn't make any sense at all. It's clearly nonsense. You can't just take words like eyeglasses and pencil and automobile and printer cables and just stick them anywhere in a paragraph, because those words actually mean something. So you can't just randomly put them into a paragraph and think it's going to be meaningful. It's nonsense. But with those other words, those reifications, you can just stick them in anywhere and it sounds sort of interesting. So that's the significant difference, is that actual substantive nouns like printer cables and tweezers and stink bugs, those words actually mean something. But words like freedom, dignity, happiness, and honor don't have any specific meaning attached to those words. They could mean almost anything depending upon the conversation and who's using the word. So that's the issue. When you listen to people talking about their problems or their philosophy, it's mostly devoid of any information. There's a lot of emotional energy on those words, but almost zero actual information. And people who spend, like if I ask you, do colorless green ideas sleep furiously? Well, you're not going to lose any sleep over that question tonight, you know, because that's clearly nonsense. It's got adjectives and nouns and they're all in the right place. It sounds like a sentence. Do colorless green ideas sleep furiously? It's not just random words, but it's clearly nonsense. But if I ask you, what is the meaning of life? Well, now that sounds like something I should spend some time thinking about. And what I'm suggesting is that that question with those words in that order are not going to get you anywhere because the word meaning and the word life need to be defined more carefully.
Yeah, that is something like I even struggle on, right? So we all use casually those kind of words, right? Even I love you or uh, various things, right? When even I don't want like to go to that part.
Well, let me just say one thing again. All of this work that I'm doing is not about all use of language. It's really about analytical situations, problem-solving situations. Writing love letters or poetry or going bowling with your friends, you know, getting drunk at a party. There's all sorts of things where this kind of stuff is not important. You know, there are different ways we use language. I'm being real picky about the way words work, but it's only important when you're doing serious analysis or problem solving. If there's some issue in your life that needs to be resolved that's creating pain, then you need to do some serious thinking. But most of the day, you know, when you go to the market and you're talking to the person at the cash register or something, this stuff doesn't make any difference. You know, there's no problem there. Everything's happy. You know, you're buying your bread and your whatever, and you have a conversation with somebody in the line. That's okay. None of this stuff is important in that situation. It's only really useful when you have a problem or some situation that you want to analyze carefully. That's when being picky about language is important.
I mean, how does that becomes important in personal relationships, right? For example, I was going at that with your actions, right? With your presence, with your visuals, your body language. If it conveys different, even whatever you say or listen to will not have the impact, right? And the words gets dissolved over a period of time. You just forget those things. And as such, you said, like in the language mission, gets very tricky. You don't even remember that, like what you said. Like, for example, right? If I am just picking up with the clubhouse, how that is working, right? Audio only, like listening to people talking to, and you are doing something else at the same time, you just don't get most of the conversations that is happening.
Yeah, I cannot multitask. I can do sequentially. I can do this and then this and then this, but I can't do two things at the same time. People who, if you're on Clubhouse and you know, and you're fixing something around the house or you're reading something and listening to Clubhouse at the same time, you can't do that. You know, if you're going to be on Clubhouse and engage in a conversation with someone, I I don't do it unless I have 100% of myself there to participate. I don't try to do two things at once because I can't do two things at once. I can only do one thing at a time. I can do one thing and then I can do another thing a minute later, and then a minute later I can do another thing, but not at the same time. So if I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm always, I mean, because on my podcast I do one-on-one interviews with people, and if I get a sense that they're not giving me 100% of their attention, I comment on it, and if I can't get that, I end it, because I'm not interested in having a conversation where the other person isn't 100% present, because I'm 100% present, and I expect that of who I'm dealing with. I mean, we're all here, you know, not doing something else at the same time.
Yeah, I agree on that. But when you talk about like clubhouse kind of thing, right? How do you get to know that like the other person? Even for me, right? I'm wearing a mask and Shiva is present on visually. You can see and you can feel and have the conversation. But whereas like some people, right? I might be doing something else parallelly, like eating or typing some letter or
Not typing. You might be able to eat, but you can't be typing and listening at the same time. There's no way.
I have to disagree in a way, because I usually do that like multitasking kind of thing. They say like,
Well, then you don't have one. If you're typing when you're talking to me, then you are not 100% with me. You may be 80% with me or whatever, but you're not 100%, because part of your brain is composing language to type. That distracts from your presence and your attention to what we are doing. I'm
yeah,
sorry
exactly.
to disagree with you, but I don't think you can actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, not 100% every time. Like people do like while driving, right? So they listen to music or
Yeah.
podcast.
Phone call.
They are on the phone call, or even some people like they attend meetings and they have to be 100% there in
And
the
they
meeting.
get into accidents often.
Yes, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just my own personal thing. When I do an interview with somebody, I expect them to be 100% there. And if they're not, I disengage.
So let's take this conversation on a different angle, right? Heron, what do you think, like, and how does that happens? Why we get stuck with the words, right? Sometimes, like, you just become speechless. Like, you wanted to say something and the words are not coming out.
Yeah.
Go blank, and you struggle. How does that happens, and why does that happens?
Oh, well, that happens to me a lot. There are a lot of times when I'm in a conversation and someone will say something or bring up a topic that I don't have an immediate response for, and I may have to just stop and think for a minute or two sometimes, because I just simply don't know what to say. A lot of times, I mean, I immediately have a response. Again, has to do with the way my language machine is programmed. There are a lot of things, I mean, like we've been talking here, I haven't been stopped by anything, so I usually have a pretty quick response. But on Clubhouse, I find many times people will ask me a question or make a comment, and I just simply don't have a response. And I'm quite comfortable with silence, so it's okay. You know, and sometimes I'll just say, like what I told you earlier, is that I don't have a comment on some particular subject. I haven't studied it. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. So I don't really have anything to say about that.
Based on the same thing, like which is the first one, like act your body or your language machine come first when somebody asks you a question?
Well, they're not separate. Thinking in language is a muscular activity. I don't know if you've ever examined this, but when I think
One thing, yeah, one thing, like if I know only one language, there's a problem with some kind of myself. I have mother tongue something, and each and every time I think on my mother tongue and reply my mind, my language machine translated in English and asking you something. What is this? What does this come of?
I'm sorry.
It's
I
I mean,
translating.
to rephrase, right? If I am thinking in a different language, so my mother tongue is a different language, and my bodily reaction is like I always think in that language. Is that what Shiva is referring to?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, I can't speak to that because I only speak English, so I don't know what that experience is. I've talked to a lot of people who are multilingual, and I have some ideas about it, but I have no personal experience of it. So all of my thinking, my language machine only operates in English.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's wonderful. I mean,
This,
we covered a lot of ground over there. I know that like Heron can talk for hours, and we don't want like
yes.
to
Okay.
ask the wrong questions or I don't
Oh,
know.
no, it's okay. Listen, if you ask the wrong questions, then that's a good opportunity to point out a problem in language. You know, like this whole thing about whether it's mental or physical. That that's the wrong question. Or it's a wrong question, actually, is a better way to say it. Because
So
I think thinking is a muscular activity. When I think in English, I am subvocalizing with the muscles in my tongue and my lips and my larynx. It's very subtle. I mean, it's not much, but it's enough to get a feedback loop between my language machine and the muscles down here. So thinking in language is a bodily function. And in fact, people who are deaf who speak sign language, you know, they don't think with their tongue and their lips and their mouth. They think with their hands and their arms and their facial expression. So it's still muscular. They still think with muscles, but they think with an entirely different set of muscles.
So yeah, some languages like where you have to fold your tongue so that the word, the pronunciation like comes out properly. That is there. Like I totally agree on that. Like what you say, like it's a muscular activity.
Excuse me just a second. Okay. Let's just, my phone alarm was going off. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's a nice ringtone. Like it's a bird creatures.
Yeah, it's a mockingbird. Yes.
Mockingbird. Yes. So yeah, we have a cockatoo, right? Cockatiels. So
Yeah.
they always make some sweet sound. So language as such, pointing out like thanks to that ringtone. I mean, the mockingbird like made me to ask this question. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. It's
Well,
basically a sound, right? It's all like the vibrations that creates
what
the language.
what um, well, no, see, I think basically it's a muscular activity. The sound is secondary. Like I say, because for a deaf person, there is no sound. You know?
Oh,
So the fundamental issue is muscular, is a bodily function. When we think in language, it is a muscular activity. It's not something off in space somewhere. It is embodied in the muscles. That's how we think.
so then can we say that like how does that happens like when you learn language, right? So you basically
Well, that's
do
what babies
exercise.
do.
It's a physical exercise where you
Well, no, like when babies, they babble. They're hearing sounds from their parents, and then they start trying to imitate them. But it's all, again, they're exercising the muscles in their mouth and their larynx until they learn how to make those sounds. Babies babble before they speak.
so it's kind of when we do the gibberish or say some random things, it it is like your muscular activity, right? So it's like
Yeah.
muscles and other things are trying to find some meaning in that. Then philosophically, right? I don't want to. I'm not interested in politics, right? Even people say that like don't do politics, and they are a politicians. How do we interpret that kind of thing, right? So politics is just a word, right? It's policy and decision making and all those things. And why do we say that as a wrong way?
I'm not sure. I don't understand the question.
So it's not just a question. I mean, I'm trying to understand like the meanings that those languages give us, right? Why do we again with random thoughts, right? You are trying to make some meaning, and if you go into the philosophical side of it, like or uh, deeper meditation or enlightenment, it's like there is no meaning and purpose. Is that what you are saying, or
Well, I'm saying there's no language. Well, I'm not comfortable with the word enlightenment anymore. I chased enlightenment for many years, and I'm no longer chasing enlightenment. But it's not because I achieved enlightenment. Um, like I say, for me, it's enough. Like I said, for me, the issue is breaking the identification with the voice and getting that all the talk, all the language, all that stuff is in this little place here, and then the whole universe is beyond that. And actually, I don't even know what I'm talking about now. I always get confused when I start trying to talk about stuff that you can't talk about. There are things outside of the domain of language. In fact, most of the universe, most of everything is outside the domain of language. Language is very good at talking about a limited set of phenomena, but outside that domain, language just becomes a confusing mess.
yeah, it's kind of useless to ponder on the abstracts.
Yeah, yeah. Some things cannot be talked about, and we should probably just shut up.
So one final thing before we wrap up, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Heron. So Shiva, if you have any final questions, I wanted to touch upon one question. The one question.
Yeah, you can go on, JK.
All right. So Heron, my question is about sex.
Okay.
It is an activity, right? So language, people do the sex talk as well, but apart from the fantasy of it, sexuality defines us. That's how like I see, like, because your existence, whatever like you say, like whether you believe it or not, whether it's true or not, sex is the one which makes us to have the life, or to continue to have the continuity in life. So how do you see that in terms of words, language?
Yeah. Um, well, sex is great. Sex is fun. Sex is wonderful for a while. But by the time I hit my mid 40s, it just wasn't as good as it was when I was in my 20s, you know? And so I see sexuality as sort of like monkey business. It's the one thing we have in common with all animals, even mosquitoes have sex, you know? And it's fun, and it feels good. But at a certain point in my life, I began to realize that just was not enough. That was not only not enough; it just was a distraction from other things that were more important to me. And I got into lots of difficult, painful situations with women, where people's feelings were hurt. And I started thinking, for a moment's pleasure, or an hour's pleasure, that a week later or a month later, there were going to be days of pain. And I'm not married too either. I'm a hermit monk. So, my life is very simple. So yeah, sex is great. I would encourage all young people to go out and have as much sex as possible. and then eventually they'll get bored with that and move on to more important things. So yeah, sex is not, it's not something I'd give much thought anymore. It's not a game I'm playing now.
Wonderful.
Although I'm not saying I won't ever do it again. It's just that it would be interesting if I was to get involved in some sort of sexual relationship with somebody, but it's hard for me to imagine how that would happen. But I don't have any rules against it.
Thank you so much. I mean, wonderful. That is a nice thought. I would say, like, you are not advocating for celibacy or no sex kind of thing, but sex is not everything in life, and it's good. You can enjoy it. And what do you have to say? Like you said, like you yourself as a monk, right? Some people force people like not to and practice celibacy and being a monk. Those are two different extremes, right?
Yeah, no, you have to come to this yourself. You have to, like I say, that's why I encourage young people to have as much sex as possible. I think one of the problems is that most men nowadays don't get enough sex when they're young. So therefore, their whole life is run by their sexual desires because they never had enough. And so that's all, they may be 60, 70, 80 years old and sex is still on their minds. That's, but I was lucky. I was a hippie. And so for like 20 years, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll, and epistemology. And so, I had enough. I did that enough to where it just, I burned it out, and so that
you had it out. Like,
yeah. But telling people you must be celibate, well, that's crazy, because they're just going to want it more and more and more.
Wonderful. You are making us feel jealous, Heron. So
it should be. It was great. Being a hippie was really fun.
All right. So with that thought, thank you all.
Well, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heron. Yeah.
Nice meeting you. And
yeah,
we're signing off for this week episode. Bye for now.